welcome to Scary Fan Party. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jim.
And this is where we talk about everything Scary Pool Party related. So, we're going to talk about Life is Beautiful for a little bit. I was really excited when I saw it. One, because I thought he sounded the best he's ever sounded. His voice for me that day, I thought was so incredibly developed from what it was, even from Idol. And I thought he sounded great on Idol, just for the record. But also, I think that the band sounded amazing together.
It sure sounds like they've been practicing, doesn't it?
It did. I thought they sounded like they got the audio levels right. I know you mentioned that before. I think, you could hear him, for one thing. Like, you could hear his singing, which, on alone, I think he does it on purpose. Like, he kind of underscores his voice on the music a lot. But there are other songs that I don't think that's purposeful, that I couldn't hear him when he was at Lollapalooza. In fact, it was the only complaint I had about Lollapalooza, because I thought he was so incredibly strong in that performance as a performer and a singer. I thought, Lollapalooza was kind of the bar to set everything by, and I didn't think the audio was insanely good from Lollapalooza.
No, I was really frustrated. Of course, our very first experience of Alejandro with the band was the pre-party, and however bad the audio might have been in Lollapalooza, it was nothing compared to how far off it was at the pre-party. I mean, you can literally barely hear his voice, and that's what everyone that attended said.
Yeah, I think that I did watch some of the audio from the pre-show, and I also watched audio from what other show did he do? Oh, Viva Pomona as well. I thought they were still in that kind of where they don't have the audio quite right. I think part of the problem is he just sings at a very low volume.
He does, I agree. And to Viva Pomona's credit, if you heard the audio from my live stream, I was very close to a speaker, and that bass was drowning everything out.
The bass was?
Yeah, it was. I just happened to be real close to a speaker, and it was vibrating the stage, and it was vibrating the floor, and it was vibrating me and my phone. And I think some of that kind of drowned out the other instruments, and it drowned out some of his vocals as well.
I was going to say, because I saw Kathy Hernandez, who's on both of our groups, I saw her live concert, and she was a little bit away, right? Like, she was away from the stage. And I actually thought her audio was better on some of the songs. Granted, it was his slower songs, right? So the audio, just by way of not having the other instruments in it, was stronger because you could hear him. But I think they have that ironed out now. I think that, they know that they have to turn his voice way up. They have to turn the drums way down. Which I do think is kind of a shame, because I think dkthedrummer is like an amazingly talented drummer. I just don't think that they're going to be able to be super loud and be able to hear him. And at this point, like, I do want to hear him when I go see him in the fall tour. So it's an interesting conversation, because I do feel like they're all so talented, but I do want to hear him sing. Like,
I do too. And at Life is Beautiful, I think that was the unveiling of proper sound audio. Wasn't Cheater good? Is it too early to bring that up in the conversation? Wasn't Cheater good?
Oh, Cheater. So for me, Cheater was unreal for me. I almost had like a religious experience with that song. And I know, like, it's funny, but I was, like, in the chat room, and I've talked about this a couple times by myself, listening to that song, and Travis, and the drums, and the bass, and I was blown away by, and I liked that song before, but I definitely love that song now, because it was so good. It was beyond good. His voice was
I feel-
perfect. Like, the guitar riffs were insane in that song, in the new version of the song, right?
I feel exactly the same way. I liked it. I'm with you. I liked it in the beginning. I liked it a lot. What was it? Cheater and Vampire Shade. They were kind of paired up on YouTube together, and I liked both of them. I took Vampire Shade first and kind of went back around to Cheater and enjoyed it. But once I heard it live, it was a completely different experience. Someone told me once that studies show that the best romantic relationships start where people kind of start out slow, and it's not like a big wild love affair right out of the gate, that it kind of starts out slow and builds. And that's the way I feel about Cheater. It's one of the strongest songs, I mean, in my opinion, that I've heard him play live with the band, and I'm in love with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that too strong to say? I'm in love with it.
I do. I loved Cheater live at Life is Beautiful. I thought it was my favorite performance of the day, and totally fell in love with the song again. I fall in love with all of his songs, but I do notice that I kind of come back around. Like, I'm just at the point in my fandom with him that I come back around to certain songs now, because we're going on a year now, almost a year, listening to him. And I've listened to little else but him for the entire year, and I know that's probably true for you for most of the year. But
absolutely.
Yeah, so I come back around to different songs. Like, I got off Alone for a while, and then I went back to it. I really, I come back to certain songs all the time, and, I won't listen to them for a couple days, and then I'll go back and listen to them. Bless Her is one of those songs for me, right? That I will listen to it, and I just can't get enough of the genius behind it, and then I'll circle around and come back to Alone, right? And I'll start listening to that for a couple weeks. It's interesting also, they vary about my mood, whatever mood I'm in. I can listen to his love songs when I'm down or stressed out about nursing school, and I feel completely connected to that. When I'm really happy, I tend to listen to a lot of his alternative music. Not sure what that connection is at all, but I really like it when I'm happy. So I listen to his... I'm usually happy, I mean, honestly. But, I mean, do you find that when you're listening to him?
But to your point about listening to different types of music in different moods, isn't it nice to have an artist that has got a different style for every possible mood? I mean, that's just the truth. And isn't it nice to have an artist that his songs can stay interesting after many, many, many listens, and then a break, and then coming back around to it. And now that things have slowed down and we're kind of waiting on the possible EP, we're waiting on the fall tour, I can come back around to some of these songs and appreciate them.
Yeah, I love that about him, actually. I love that I've been this into a music artist for as long as I have been. I'm fickle about music, right? I get bored easy in life, even with dating, you can see it. I get, I need to be with somebody who challenges me, and he does that as an artist. So I like that he has so many different sides, because I never know what to expect, and it's kind of it's new and it's exciting, and since he has so many different styles, you can come around to it and be like, oh yeah, this is why I love this so much, right? And it's you've been stuck in one style for so long, but then you can go back and revisit the other things. And I guess maybe I don't know if every artist has that, but I literally just love everything about every one of his styles. And I know not everybody feels that way, but for me, I think it's one of the defining things.
Well, I've got some strange kinds of music in my past. Let me see. I went to a barbershop quartet once on a date. I used to listen to, as some of the people in my group now know, Messianic Christian praise music. There's a band called Lamb from the 70s. Just a little bit of everything, and some really odd types of music too. But I've never met any single artist or musician that has spanned the spectrum of musical styles like Alejandro Aranda. It just is absolutely amazing to me. And not only that, but you talked about being fickle, even in dating. You want someone that's going to challenge you. Even once you come to know Alejandro's entire musical library, he goes live and he'll play a song like he did a couple nights ago, and we will talk more about this, Millennial Love. But then he'll change it up in several different ways. The guitar will be different. He'll add a verse in, or he'll do fun little cryptic things like slur the words, which is something I just noticed in person for the first time. Got to see his lips forming the words to one of the lyrics of Millennial Love, and he intentionally, I'm positive, he intentionally slurred those words. And I don't know why, and we talked about this earlier, I don't know why, I don't have a theory on it, but it's interesting to me. And those kind of cryptic additions to his music are the kind of things that keep me stimulated.
Well, and I think that keeps the Aliverse going too, because they love to analyze this stuff. And I noticed it, so I noticed he did it, but I didn't know if it was purposeful or it was just his style of singing. I did notice that on Dissonant Harmony. I did that lyric video like a couple months ago, and there is one part in that song that I was like, what is he saying? So you kind of you're trying to analyze it and figure out what the words are. And you guys do this on the group all the time. They have full-on conversations about what he means, what the symbolism is, why he's saying something a certain way. You've seen it. I know you have, because Hey Roosters, right? So
they go to crazy levels of analysis with these lyrics, but it's worth it. You want to get those lyrics right if possible.
Well, and I think he does. I thought we're going to talk about the MTV article later, but I do think that with him, because he records so much and he works on his music every single day, I think that he comes up with these things maybe to challenge himself too, since it's a form of therapy for him. And he has said that in past interviews, that he gets his feelings out through his music. It was a way, at least in the past, was a way for him to deal with his heartbreak. So it wouldn't shock me if he challenges himself to see what kind of cool things he can do with lyrics and music, and how he can play this different. He literally plays the guitar. I heard somebody do a breakdown. It might have been Corey Jacobs did a breakdown on one of his songs. It was talking about the fact that he plays the guitar, he plays it backwards, right? On the piano, he plays, and I'm not a piano player, but he plays, one with his left hand and one with his right hand, and most piano players play it the opposite.
As an artist, he has a song called Satisfied.
Yes.
But I don't know how satisfied he is or ever will be as an artist, as a composer, as a creator. And the best artists out there, he said one time that he felt, after he finished a song, he felt like 10 minutes of joy or satisfaction, and then he was already thinking about the next song and wanting to outdo himself. And I think there's a couple things that are true of him that are true of a lot of artists. Number one is that he's never satisfied. It's never completely good enough, and there's always somewhere deeper or larger to take it. And number two, he doesn't like to repeat himself. He has that sense for originality, and he wants to be fresh, and one of the ways to be fresh is not to repeat what you've done a dozen times, and that certainly is true with songs like Millennial Love and a lot of the songs that he plays in concert. He just, he likes to toss it up a little bit at some point, or do something different, some different arrangement, and I think that's just an artistic need to keep it fresh and relevant and interesting and original.
Yeah, I posted that one quote once from Beethoven, which I thought was particularly good, but it was something about how artists they're never done playing, or they're never happy because they realize how little they've accomplished in their music. And so they're never, like, they're perfectionists and are never done, right? They're never done fixing their music. And I think that's definitely, when I read that, I thought of him. And I think with him, he specifically, like, he changes Millennial Love. I mean, we were talking about Millennial Love. He changes that song every single time he plays. And it's become a thing. It has, like, for his fans, like, how is he going to sing it this time?
Well, I hope I'm not jumping ahead again, but, well, let me just talk about it. I just came from the Abbott Kinney Festival in Venice, California, and it was Sunday, just a couple days ago from the time of this recording. It was a free concert. He went on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The artists there got, I think, a half-hour block of time to do their music. Was set up and tear down of their equipment that only left like 15, 18, 20 minutes max. And he played for about 17 minutes, if I remember right. And he played 3 songs, and these are 3 songs that every single fan of Alejandro Aranda has heard before, but they just were so fresh. I mean, he opened up with Out Loud, and, you know, he played different chords at the end of Out Loud when he does a little instrumental there, and it just sounded different, and his voice was very particular for that night, and it sounded great, and we've already talked about that. It sounds like he's been taking voice lessons. He may or may not have, but he's been taking it seriously, and his voice sounds awesome. It's strong, and I can't imagine that I ever had any personal doubts or questions, you know, back during the Idol days, that he had a good voice. And I was starting to wonder. I thought maybe it was just too breathy ever really to accomplish what he needed to do in a stadium or with a band, but he's definitely doing it. So that concert was great. It was 3 songs, but every single fan that I talked to absolutely loved it, even though we've been hearing these songs for about 7 or 8 months now.
Right. So it always astounded me on Idol that he didn't think he could sing, because I've had conversations with people about him, a lot of conversations with people about him that don't know who he is. And the first thing they notice is his voice. They don't know that he plays the guitar or the piano, right? They assume it's a studio musician. And I've had people just totally stunned by his voice. And these were from his American Idol-like songs. So when they hear other things that he's done, and they realize that he's been playing seriously for 4 years, well, I guess 5 now, but they realize that he's seriously been playing for 4 years, they are always blown away by his voice. Like, to me, I've never questioned the quality of his voice, and maybe it was because Lionel was so sure about it, right? Lionel was just like, during his audition, I mean, they all were so blown away by him, and it was because of the whole thing, and a lot because of his voice. Because that's what they look for on that show, right? They don't look for songwriters and musicians. They look for singers.
That's right. Well, you know, listen, speaking hopefully for a few of the fans out there that question his voice like I did, when did the audio issues start? They started on Idol. Not so much the audition, but and not so much the beginning several weeks of Idol when he was doing covers and that kind of thing. But they really started to do a lousy job on Idol with his vocals over whatever instrument he was playing. And then the trolls started questioning whether he was a singer at all, and he was questioning whether he was a singer at all. So in that context, I'm going to be a little bit lenient on myself and understanding towards anyone who might have played with the question, because that's kind of how it felt. Like, okay, we got this guy who's got amazing talent on the piano and the guitar, and he's got a good voice. You know, and that's kind of the way a lot of people are treating him, even that we're already fans, and we were just hoping for the best, that he could develop that voice enough to where it would last over the course of his career, and he'd be able to go out and go on stage and be heard. And to me, that's not even a question anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there were times that, but I guess the only difference is, and I'm not being hard on people that didn't think he had the best voice in the world. For me, it was always based on the production quality, not him. You know, like, especially there was one song he did that was, the audio was so bad, and you couldn't even hear him over the music, and I can't remember what it is. Was it Under Pressure, maybe? But there was one particular song that the production quality was terrible. But I always thought of that as an Idol problem, not as a... And so I'm not being hard on anybody. I just want to make that clear. I'm not mad at anybody that questioned his talent. But I did always think he had a great voice. It was always astounding to me that he didn't know that he was talented. That he didn't see what we all saw, you know?
These are like irrational fears of mine. I kept them quiet. For a lot of people that don't know what goes on in the social media front, you know, while Idol was on, as Idol starts to get towards the finale, and we get down to the top 10, top 8, etc., Facebook and social media goes kind of crazy, and it's kind of an all-out battle zone, and the trolls kind of come out of the woodwork, and it just gets bloody, and so a lot of the people were downing on Alejandro because of his voice, and all I did was argue that it was you know, it was the sound people on Idol and this kind of thing. But of course, inside I was wondering, is he going to be able to do it? And it feels silly now. It feels silly to admit that, but it feels silly that I ever thought that, because it, you know, we had plenty of music online on SoundCloud and YouTube and other formats to prove that this guy has a voice.
For me, Idol, so I wasn't on the groups at that point when he was on Idol. I didn't join the groups until after Idol was over because I missed him. So for me, like, I didn't see all that fighting. I'm not shocked by it because I work in social media and it does happen. But it's still a war. I feel like with some fans, you know, I still see negative comments about him from other, like, Lane fans or whatever. I don't want this to turn into an American Idol discussion about Lane fans versus Alejandro fans, because for one, I think it's ridiculous they're friends and they like each other, so why do we have to put other people down? And I do feel like that happens a lot, especially like right after, like I felt like it was a big thing. But it was, you know, American Idol, we've talked about this a million times at this point, but I do think that it kind of set the stage for his career. And I do want to, like, change subjects at this point. So, you know, one of the things I wanted to get to today is the fact that we found out that he is releasing an EP and not an album, which I'm not totally shocked by. But, and I'm not disappointed either, because I do want some of his older songs to be recorded. I can think of, you know, 20 songs that I would love to hear recorded. I do wish he had new music coming out, though, because I do kind of want new music, but I also don't want to rush him, right? Like, I don't want him to feel like he is rushing his art to fulfill the fans' needs ahead of when he wants it to be done. I do worry about the fact that he might feel like it's never going to be done. But I do see that if you look back at his older performances of, like, even Out Loud when he was doing backyard parties, he did get it to a point where it was a song that had a specific sound to it. It had specific choruses. I mean, disregarding Millennial Love, which he changes a lot, most of his songs do have like set choruses and stuff. So I guess he reaches a point where he's like, okay, this is what I want it to sound like.
Yeah, there's certain songs that just seem to like he makes an addition to the song, and then that addition kind of stays, and that becomes the new version of the song. And like, you know, it's evolving, and he's slowly getting it to a level where he can kind of produce it and put it on wax, as they say, and have it be done.
So I think his fans are so dedicated, they're going to buy whatever it is that comes out, because we always do. But
yep.
I don't know, I haven't been on the groups all week because I've just been like crazy busy, as you know. But I don't know, are people reacting to that? Are people reacting to the fact that it's an EP and not an album?
Well, first let me put a disclaimer out there. There was the MTV article where he talked about he had an upcoming EP, and he didn't set a date to it in that article. And we've got this date of October 4th that he posted on his Instagram, and we know that's an important date, and we're counting down to it. And we thought it was an album. Now we're thinking it's an EP, but we're not 100% sure on either. Are you in agreement with that?
It's always hard to tell with him. I think that it could be the album, it could not be the album. My feeling, personally, without knowing what's going on, I feel like this may have been a compromise. Like the EP might be a compromise to the label to buy him more time on the album.
I would have to agree with that. I mean, if he is a perfectionist, and this is his first album, and he said he wanted to get it right, he said he wanted to produce it well, and if he's got any pressure on him at all to get this album out at a certain time, I could see a compromise like, hey, let's put out an EP.
Right.
And as far as how the groups are reacting, there hasn't been a great amount of reaction so far to whether they like the EP idea over an album or necessarily what they'd want on the EP. But I think from Alejandro's point of view, this might not be a bad idea, especially if that EP has got some of our old favorite songs in it, Poison, 10 Years, Out Loud. Because it seems to me that we've got all this contingency of fans that learned about him through Idol, that fell in love with him through Idol, and that are doing their very best to try to adapt as he introduces new sides of himself. But these people, let's face it, their first love is his instrumental stuff. It's his piano and his guitar and the songs that they heard in the very beginning. And I think it's just a smart move on his part, if this has anything to do with it at all. Put an EP out and maybe put some of these old beloved songs on there, and just kind of, you know, throw a bone, if you will, to the Idol fans.
Well, and I wondered, honestly, if that's what he was doing with the acoustic sets lately. First of all, my first thought with the acoustic sets was maybe he was just tired of it after Idol, because that's all he did, right? I thought maybe he just wanted to write something new. And now I feel like maybe he's coming back around to it. But there is a lot of music. He has an extensive library of music. And nobody could argue that. With where he is right now, like, there are at least probably 20 songs I could think of that I would want recorded so that I could have it on my phone and listen to it, right? I do listen to it on SoundCloud, and I go to different sites to listen to stuff, but I would love to have a recorded studio version of Bless Her. I would love that. Bless Her, to me, Bless Her is one of the true accomplishments of his, because it is so beautifully done with the piano and the lyrics, and I know it's exhausting, so we're never going to see it in concert probably. I would love to have Bless Her on an album. I would love to have Poison on an album. Not to mention the entire, I mean, at this point he has enough music to release like 3 records just based on his past stuff.
Yeah, he sure does. And Bless Her and Poison, those are 2 interesting choices, because both of them are very difficult to play, from what I understand. Not being a musician myself. but they're both kind of representative of what he's all about too. There's the classical influences are there, the originality shines through, you know. And yeah, I'm with you. I can't wait for the day that I hear studio produced versions of both of those songs, and they're going straight into my phone as well.
It's astounding to me. And even we were talking about Cheater at Life is Beautiful. So I've known about Cheater for a long time. I listen to it. I go through periods where I listen to it a lot. But when he played it at La La, I was like, wow, this is like one of my new favorite songs. Like, I really love this version of this song. So he has all the old versions, plus his spin that he puts on everything every time he plays something. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And I feel like with his music, I've always talked about the fact that I feel like I go on a journey when I listen to him. And whether it's through something that happened or a struggle that I'm having now, or whether I'm upset with something, God's America and Guns was a good representation of, you know, being upset with kind of what's going on in the world. And I felt that frustration for him. And to me, there's just so many possibilities for this EP, and I hope to see some of that. I have a feeling that if it is the EP, it'll probably be some of his acoustic music that he wrote, because he said that, right, in an Instagram somewhere. Somebody sent me a picture of the Instagram from him that said he was releasing an EP and it was going to be some of his older music. So I'm assuming it's going to be some of the acoustic music he released. But we don't know that.
Someone asked about Poison.
What?
Someone asked about Poison in specific. Someone asked about the song Poison in specific on his IP.
Yes,
and he
that
came in
was
and answered them and said he was going to put out an EP with some older songs. And I'm assuming, since he answered a question about Poison, that Poison's going to be on there, which is very exciting.
Which I think is a good move, but I hope... So my frustration right now with Hollywood Records is that they're not really promoting his music. And Poison, for me, is one of the songs, that and Fading Away, I think are two of his most commercial songs that he has. Poison, I think, is extremely commercial. I think it will do well on the radio. And Fading Away as well, but Fading Away was recorded by somebody else in Tennessee, so I don't know that he'll re-release that. I don't even know if he can. Honestly, I don't understand all the rules to the music industry, but what I'm getting, the more that I learn as we go, is that it's a very complicated industry, and it has a lot of rules, and there are a lot of things that go into it. So it's going to be interesting to see what's actually on the EP. I'm guessing at least 8 songs, because I can think of 8 songs that people would definitely want to hear.
Is 8 songs considered an EP? I was about to ask you that. I always thought an EP was like 3 or 4 songs.
Well, I don't know. I've heard people release EPs that were like 8 to 10 songs, but like I said, I'm not a music industry person. I talk to people in the music industry, but I'm kind of like, I'm not a musician, I'm not a singer. I was a DJ when I was younger, and now I have the radio show, but I'm not by any means a DJ. So
Do you have a DJ name?
I do not. It's just
name?
Sarah.
Oh.
But I'm not in the music industry, and I don't want to pretend like I am just because I have a radio show. I lucked into that. It was a way to get his music out there, and that was my main concern, right? It was just supplementing the podcast that we do and everything else to try to get his music out there, because I think his music has a message. I think he has a message, and I believe in his message. So I wanted to further that. I always end my show with, do something good for the world, or, do something good for somebody. And I think that that's kind of the message I get from him, is just love people around you and do some good. And I love that message. I think that the EP is, I'm excited nonetheless. I do want new music, but I don't want him to rush. So I'm happy to wait however long he wants to wait. I'm just happy to have something recorded, honestly. So I just hope that the record company supports him, because I don't feel like that has happened. And maybe that's because we're like on the front lines and we're out there like pushing his music all the time. But I just don't see it as much as I feel like I should.
Yeah, what did Eddie call it? The money?
Right. Like
You know,
the
he-
people
that was-
that are responsible for getting it on the radio. Like why is he not there? And is his star that rose so high on American Idol, is that, somebody said the other day that his 15 minutes of fame are up, and I'm like, he hasn't even started yet. For me, like, I feel like this is the beginning, and it's at times been rough, but it hasn't changed the fact that he is an incredibly talented musician and singer. That has not changed for me.
He wasn't a star on American Idol. He was a contestant. He was, he had no reputation except for a few thousand people on his Instagram at the time. The judges recognized the stardom in him, and for anyone that's looking at where things are going with his career now, here at the end of summer, and are questioning whether he is a star or is still a star, I think that's absolutely ludicrous, because his potential for stardom is still there every bit as much as it was on Idol, and much more since we've seen so many different sides of him now. And nothing is diminished. We haven't come out the other side of Idol and said, oh, well, that was kind of a mass hallucination we were all part of. He's good, but he's not that good, blah, 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 blah. That didn't happen. We're still absolutely amazed, and he's still surprising us with his skills. And so, as far as being a star, no, he's not Post Malone yet. He doesn't have 14 million or whatever, however many IG followers that Post Malone does. But he's still got everything that we saw the very first day that he stepped on the stage in American Idol.
And I think he's gotten better. His voice, I'm telling you, his voice at Life is Beautiful was the best I've ever heard it. And he followed it up at the Abbott Kinney Festival. And it wasn't a fluke. Like, it wasn't like he got on stage at Life is Beautiful and he just had a really good day. Because at Abbott Kinney, his voice was also completely on point. And it was the best I've heard him sound since I've started following him. So
I was gonna mention earlier that, with all the nerves on Idol, everyone knows now that he was nervous on Idol. He wasn't used to being broadcast out to millions of people. He wasn't used to all the strange demands that were put on him, and the prodding and encouraging right before he was supposed to go out on stage. And his voice was amazing at the time, and yet compared to now, it seems like he has so much more control over it. And I think a lot of that is just a function of the fact that he's practiced, he's been on stage, he's faced a lot of his fears, and he doesn't have that same anxiety that he had on Idol, or maybe even during the summer tour. And it just shows. I mean, the voice is able to come out more naturally and stronger.
I think he's going to get better and better. Honestly, I just feel like, I don't feel like this is the end. I feel like it's the beginning. And for all the naysayers out there, I mean, he's always going to have that. He is going to have critics. Everybody has an opinion about everything these days. But I hope that he doesn't read too much into that, because I know that kind of stuff affects him. But for most of the fans that are in the Alleyverse, I think that the dedication to his music has only grown stronger. I feel like he has this whole community vibe that I love now, because I'm like, we are a community. And you remember in the beginning, he was like, this is just the music. There's this whole community. I don't understand it. And I think he's seeing that as a positive thing now. And I'm just like, I'm waiting for you. Like, we're here. We're waiting for you. Like, your fans that you have love you beyond all belief, like love your music. And it is about the music. It's about him too, but it is about the music. For me, his music is just transformative. And I've only seen one other thing in the world do that, and that's the Bible. So, you know, I think that people want to be good, and they want to be the person that they're supposed to be in life, right? And I feel like he does that. He talks about loving the people in your life and being good to people, giving back to the community. And I feel like that happens in our community. I feel like we help each other. It is, you know, whenever there's a chance to support him, we do that as much as we possibly can. And I don't know, so I think it's a positive turn. I do feel like he still has a long way to go, though.
Yeah, Alejandro, his values are what set him apart for me from the very beginning. I was able to pick up enough of that in the first weeks to realize that he's one of those artists that's kind of coming in with a set of values that fans can identify with. Now, you know, I've said on the podcast before, I used to go to Grateful Dead shows. They have their own set of values that were different than Alejandro's. You know, but I think that was important. And when it came time to start a fan club on Facebook, and when it came time to write policies, we kind of played off of the values he's put out there on IG and other places. Love more, hate less. We keep it real simple that way. But the amount of community amongst the organized groups of fans on Facebook is absolutely amazing to me. And the other groups as well, but mine in particular, I never thought in 100 years that I would be at this point at the end of summer, after having administrated this group for about 3 months, that I would still be this excited to see this group continue on and grow, because it's really strong and there are genuine friendships being made. And I'm meeting people 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and more at local concerts here. And that's real. You know, that's real life. That's my life and my time. These are real friendships that are being made. And, you know, I feel really grateful. And it motivates me to want to continue on, to keep our group of fans focused, to collectively learn as much as we need to learn about Alejandro as an artist and as a musician, and what kind of fans he might need. Alejandro also needs to learn about us as fans, but we need to keep growing and just be the best fans that we can be for Alejandro, to the point where when we see him at a concert and he looks over and he sees fans that he's seen at other concerts, and he knows these are local LA fans and possibly part of a Facebook fan group, that he'll feel comfortable, that he'll be able to let his guard down and realize that we're on his side and we've got his best interests at heart. And whatever that means, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, actually, you bring up an interesting point and all that, because it was something I was going to talk to you about earlier, but I was exhausted. So, but one of the things that I thought about earlier today was that he made a point at one point during one of his shows that we didn't know him. And one thing I think he has done really well lately is kind of tell us who he is. And I think he needs to do that, right? Fine, we don't know him. We don't know what he's doing, how he makes his decisions, and I don't want to pretend to know him, right? I would rather he say, and obviously he's not going to tell us everything about his life, because that would just be dangerous. But telling us who he is, I think, is a critical step in this relationship building that we have going on with him, right? Like, no, we don't know him, but also him being able to be comfortable enough to tell us who he is, right? Like, to say, hey, this is on my heart and this is who I am. And I feel like he's been making such an effort to do that recently, and I feel better. Like, I feel more comfortable, because there have been points in my fandom with him that I've been uncomfortable because I don't know what he wants, right? Like, with the social media thing. I mean, I went through a point where I was like, I don't know what to do right now, because I literally don't know if he wants this or he doesn't want this. And I know we've had that conversation, right? About, like, okay, does he want it? Does he mind it? Does he not want it? So I think he's getting better at that. I feel like it's like a real relationship. I feel like he's getting used to us. We're getting used to him. You know, he has some moments that I'm sure were, while honest, I think he's always honest, they were probably not best played out on social media, because social media is a bad place to air your feelings. It just is. It's not extremely forgiving, and they remember everything. And they will post it and talk about it forever. So I don't blame him for being afraid of social media, because it is, and for him, it has not always been pleasant, right? He hasn't had, I mean, he has us, and we always go drown out the haters. We do. Like, that is one thing I think we do really well, is somebody hates on him, we go post lots of positive stuff around it, because it's not necessary to do that. You can dislike him. You don't need to hate him publicly on his own thread and write him, you know, racial slurs and messages of hate. I just don't think it's appropriate ever. I talked about that a lot. But I think that this is like any other relationship. I think we're kind of just learning who we are, right? Who we are as fans and who he is as an artist. And he's learning the same thing.
I think it is just like a relationship. It's like a relationship with a temperamental artist.
Yes.
And I can speak to this a little bit. I am myself a temperamental artist, not in Alejandro's category, but I am an artist, as a lot of people know. And there's something about the artist where the whole reason for their art is to reveal themselves. And yet our greatest fear is that we'll be found out, that people are finally going to see the real us, and they'll just reject us, and will reject all of our work and all of our creativity because they just decide they don't like us because they've seen enough of us to make that decision. It's an irrational fear, but a lot of artists have that. I do.
Well, Jim, you brought up a lot of really good points tonight. I think that, you know, it's always an adventure with him. You know, we both have discussed that this relationship has been at times a tumultuous relationship, but I know that a lot of us are here for life, and I think it means the world to me. You know, some of the friends I've made on these groups are true friends, and it's amazing to me because I've never had that experience on social media before.
Yep, neither have I. This is a first.
So anyway, I think that we should wrap up this edition of the Scary Fan Party, and we will be recording again in a couple weeks. We will talk about all the Scary Fan Party news that we have. And do you have anything to close with, Jim?
No, I don't have anything to add. I will see you next time, Sarah J. Hoffman.
Okay. Thanks for putting my whole name out there, Jim Aldrich.
P. Aldrich.
Jim Aldrich. No, so that's it for the Scary Fan Party podcast for this edition. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I know that Jim and I have talked about this many times, but we do this for you, the fans, and we hope that you enjoy it, and tune in next time.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'm Jim.
And I'm Sarah.
Tune in 2 weeks for another podcast. Take care, guys.
It's all love. Bye.